Today I've got a really cool but short video, and we're going to take a tour of the Edelbrock Carburetor facility in Sanford, North Carolina. I didn't get a lot of video, but I got enough and some pictures. I'd like to show you a little bit about it and talk about it along the way. Let's get going. So yeah, like I said, I didn't get a lot of video. The video that I do have and the image I do have is from the last two trips. I'm like anybody else. You go someplace cool, you see something neat. My first instinct isn't to pick up the camera and start taking pictures. I guess it probably should be if I'm going to do this YouTube thing. But yeah, I just was along for the ride, wanted to check it out. See all the equipment, see all the people working, hear the stories and the experiences of how they make these carburetors and how they have since the Carter carburetor days. It's the same facility that didn't move. Edelbrock acquired that manufacturing facility quite a few years ago, but some of those folks have worked there 20, 30, 40 years, and they made the original Carter Competition Series carburetor, and now they make the Edelbrocks. Let's just go ahead and get to the first clip, and like I said, I got video and images, so we'll just kind of roll through both. Now, the first part of the manufacturing process is obviously the main body and the air horn assembly, the top of the carburetor. It's not quite an assembly at that point. Edelbrock said that they used a caster that makes these in a very high demand or high volume place in Tennessee somewhere. I don't know where or the name of it. Doesn't really matter, but they make those the main bodies. They don't do any of the final CNCing. They just cast the top, and those are the two pieces that start the whole thing. And then they just machine each one as they need to be individually, and start to build out the carburetor as it is. So it's kind of segregated in some different areas, but we'll take a look at the main bodies first, because really the machine that does that, I kind of fell in love with it. It was just so cool to see all the things. So let's take a look at a video clip of that thing working. Now, one of the first processes they do is to start to drill out all the pathways in it, make sure it's clear. Idle circuits, the circuit for the accelerator pump, all of those little ports that you see within the carburetor, they have to be indexed correctly or drilled to the right size. Make sure there's no casting in here, and that's what that machine does. Indexes the body onto it, and then it's make sure it's in place with the fixture, and then it just starts drilling. So when you look at the outside of an Edelbrock carburetor, or even some of the pieces and parts individually, you'll see plugs, and the reason those plugs are there is that's where the drill or whatever fixture that they use to go through there, I'm assuming it's a drill, goes through there, and then once it gets to the depth that it needs to be, they plug it off. And yeah, it's just kind of a cool process to watch them do all those things. So that anytime you see a little brass or aluminum plug on an Edelbrock carburetor part, that's the reason why it's there, is because it had to be drilled out. So very, very cool to see that machine work. It was very, very busy at the time that I was there, just cranking out main bodies. In the last video we did, talking about things you don't need to worry about on an Edelbrock carburetor, we talked about the throttle shafts, and that's what this individual is doing here, is he's indexing in the right size for the throttle shaft. Remember, these aren't a tolerance fit. They're not, a really tight bush deal. They're not meant to be sealed. They work extremely well, and that's what he's doing, is setting that in for all of these main bodies. You see them stacked up there on the bench, and it just goes one by one. The next process is kind of cool, and a lot of processes they do here are interesting, because it's like every step of the machining process, they do a little bit of a QC check on it before it gets to the next step. And the cool thing about that is they don't just wait to get to the end to go, okay, let's put pressure on this thing, make sure it holds fuel, doesn't leak, whatever it is. They know by the time it gets to the final assembly table, and before it goes to the packaging, that this thing has passed every step. So it's kind of cool to see them pressurize different things. Gives them a pass or accept or reject deal up there. I saw it on countless numbers of machines there. So just kind of cool to see that QC isn't a final step. It's a step every step along the way during the process. which is the reason why these Edelbrock carburetors are so doggone consistent with everything, is they just work every single time. So cool to see that level of testing and the amount of work that goes into it. But that little machine's kind of cool there. That kind of shows them once they put some pressure to it, if it's accepted or if it needs to get rejected and scrapped. Another cool thing in this process is every single place that a machining piece takes part, whether it's on the main body, the air horn, individual pieces, the choke assembly, boosters, nozzles, doesn't matter what it is, they're all indexed into the machine the exact same way. So again, we talked about consistency just a second ago. The reason they can get those consistent results is everything is indexed into a fixture and it's secured tightly before whatever machining process or quality control process or pinning or whatever it is that they're doing with it. And that's what you see a lot of every little step of the way is how it just attaches to a machine. Geeky, I know, but I absolutely love that kind of thing. I could watch stuff like this all day long. I didn't get a lot of video or images or spend much time in the area where they were machining the air horn assembly. A lot of what I saw was the main body stuff, but certainly because it's a mass production, the cool thing is Edelbrock doesn't make 20 of one part number and 50 of another in one day. They will typically make large runs of something. So if they're doing a 1906, which is the ABS2 electric choke carburetor, or they're doing the old tried and true 1406, the 600 Performer Series electric choke carburetor, they will usually do several hundred a day, 300 to 500, I guess it is. Typically, and then sometimes little runs of other little things that they need to get done. They do a lot of other things there as well too. They do some fuel pump assembly and all that there as well. Didn't look at most of that. I was too interested in the carburetor stuff, to be honest with you. But yeah, the air horn assemblies here, where they're kind of done with them, they will go assembly line fashion. They're all the exact same, so everything that goes into it is the exact same on that day that they're working. So it's kind of cool just to see how that all goes together, and they can't really screw it up because, like I say, every day is a different carburetor for the most part that they're working on, and just kind of cool to see it all go through an actual production line where there's hundreds of these things being built in a day. We've talked about boosters quite a bit over the years, and what they are and how to identify them, and different ways of tuning them and different ways of looking at them, how the theory of them work. But these are all cast right there from scratch, right there at that facility. It's really cool to watch that machine work. But I will tell you, they kind of laughed at me a little bit because I made a rookie move a couple of times. But when those are done in that initial machine where they make the general form of it, they are scorching hot. I don't know the degrees on it. I didn't ask for a temperature gun to see what they're coming out at, but they kind of giggled at me after I picked one up and flipped it around a little bit, and then had to hot potato it back into the bin because they are scorching coming out of there. But they're all pressed and made right there in that facility, and then all the little machine work goes together to put all these things together and drill them out, put the right pickup tubes and the air bleed in it, and do all the drilling to it. All that stuff is done right there. If it's the annular booster, the ring gets knocked into there once it's cast. So again, and then they test them. It goes down an assembly line where they do all those things, and then they'll test to make sure that they flow properly, or maybe that they hold pressure, don't leak. I'm not exactly sure. Didn't ask them all the details of a lot of this stuff. It's their secret to know. Just was cool to see every little step of the way and see how they're all put together. The electric choke bodies are also done right there as well too, and final process of putting the piston in, putting the little connecting rod and everything all together. Again, just super geeky to kind of see that, to go from kind of something rough to something that's ready to be finished and or is finished and ready to go onto a carburetor. So kind of cool to watch them make those assemblies. I stood there and watched this lady put these together for quite a long time, long enough that she said thank you when I left. Again, like I said, they take pride in what they do, and I think it was just kind of cool to stand there and watch her put those together, and how quickly she did it, and how quickly it all came together. One other little detail here too is there's a lot of automation here, but there's also a lot of hands-on, replacing things, two at a time, one at a time, whatever it is. Especially the big things like the main bodies and the air horn assemblies and all that. But sometimes these little things, like the boosters, they're loaded into the machine. I don't recall how that is, but then, each process happens, and then it spits it out into its correct bin, especially if it's a booster, it has a left and a right. So just kind of cool to see that there was some automation in it, but a lot of it was still very much one hand or two hands on, and moving things around as need be. There's kind of like a final assembly room, but even though there's some production on some small parts that occur there, where everything just kind of comes together. So main bodies start to get assembled, and different things. The nipples for the PCV valve, the ported and timed vacuum ports go in, idle mixture screws. Every step of the way has got some little detail, putting the throttle shafts together and setting all those little things. So it's kind of cool to watch it all go through the assembly line, and that's what some of that is here, is just different steps in the process where they are doing one little function on it, and then it goes onto a cart or it goes onto an assembly line, and it goes down to the next person to do their little piece of the puzzle. So I can see where it might get a little monotonous, but really, after talking to quite a few of these folks, especially the ones that have been there for a really long time, they take an awful lot of pride in what they do. And in today's day and age, where so much stuff goes offshore, it's really cool to see that, and have those folks talk about how, I've been here for 28 years, and big smile on their face, and I've done this and this and this, and I've worked in these different departments. It's just cool to talk to those folks, because they've got a real hands-on, that carburetor that goes right on your engine. There's countless numbers of people that touch this thing from start to finish, and hey, right there in Sanford, North Carolina, it's just a really cool place to see all this stuff come together. But that final room really has all of those pieces going together to make the carburetor in its final rendition. I didn't get any video here in the area where they're assembling the VRS carburetors, but this one again is kind of cool. When you go into the production line for the Performer and the AVS carburetors, multiple people have their hands on it. In this one, very few. I think there's only 2 or 3, maybe 4 people that work in that room assembling these. So they're highly specialized technicians that work on that carburetor, because it's certainly something very different, very new for Edelbrock. It's a different style of carburetor for them, but they're very sophisticated in the fixtures that they use, how they test it, how they make sure that there's no, porosity issues with the castings, that all of the air bleeds are in correctly. They pressure test all of it. Very, very, very cool. I think they wet test it as well too, maybe flow it. I'm not exactly sure. I didn't see all of it. They were kind of on a lunch break, I think, when I walked through there. But cool to see it all. And again, it's a lot of an assembly line type deal. These, they don't do hundreds a day. I think they do just a small number of a day, but they're a more specialized carburetor. They're a race carburetor. They're not, an average street type carburetor. So again, this one was one where, I've gotten hundreds of questions, it seems like, with the videos that I put together on the VRS. Well, it must come from offshore from China at that price. Nope, made right there in Sanford, North Carolina. I saw the facility and saw the technicians when they came back from lunch anyway, before they got ready to put them all together. So again, very, very cool to see that VRS carburetor for the price point that it's at, to still be made here in the USA and not knocked off offshore somewhere and brought in at a really ridiculous cheap price. Again, shame on me for not not taking more pictures or shooting more video, but I couldn't be more happy with the hospitality that I received from those folks. They're typical North Carolina folks. They're very, very hospitable, very, very nice, very, very accommodating. Answered all my stupid questions and gave me an open book to the facility and let me wander through there and see everything and ask as many questions and see all the things that they had to offer and all things that they do there. So again, I've always been a big fan of the Edelbrock Carburetor just simply because I've had multiples. I had one of the first ones that were out back in the late 80s, early 90s when they first came out. So it's been a carburetor I've had my hands on quite a bit, and that's why you see a lot of tuning videos from me because I just know it very well. And for what it's designed to do, it's a pretty doggone good carburetor. And now I kind of understand the reason why. That design is fairly old, but the people that are putting it together there in North Carolina, there in Sanford, are certainly a lot younger than that. They are very, very energetic, very happy, eager to tell you what they do, tell you how it all goes together, and I don't know if the videos and the pictures are going to do this justice. It was certainly a fun time to go there those couple of times and meet everybody and see all the things they do. And this last time it was kind of cool just because the VRS was something new and I wanted to check it out. So anyway, if you have any questions about the Edelbrock Carburetor, the facility, the tour, I'm sorry again that I didn't have a lot of video and a lot of pictures, but maybe one day I'll get a chance to go back there and we'll shoot quite a bit more. But it was just kind of a fun day for me, both those trips I made over there, and hope you had fun watching it. I guess you guys will catch you on the next one. We'll see you.